Beloved, if the apocalypse were upon us tomorrow and I had to choose two tools for carpentry, it would be these two right here. The Stanley number 4 bench plane. Whether it be a new reproduction or one that you restore, the number 4, just if you could only have one, is the tool. And the Sweetheart or any 3/4 inch chisel. Now I'm getting ready to start a big project here, traditional woodworking. I do traditional mixed with modern because, well, I'm not one of those gatekeeping traditional woodworkers that think that if you're touching a power tool to any tool, then you are a heretic or worse. So I like to embrace both. I think you should know the basic understanding of these tools, how to be competent with them, but for goodness sake, let's use modern tools and actually get some work done. If we're gonna go full apocalyptic, then we're gonna go to the diamond stones. Of course, to be platinum level Proho, you need to have a set of diamond stones. Coarse, medium, and fine. Super flat, last a long time. You can sharpen anything that needs sharpening on here, including your planer blades and a good leather strop. Now, there are mechanical ways of sharpening. Lots of guys do that. That's fine. Not opposed to that, but you should have a basic understanding on how to sharpen a knife with a whetstone. This is how I set mine up. I learned this from Paul Sellers, an old traditional woodworker, but this is just an oak base that I built with a leg on it that you can put in your vise so it doesn't move around while you're sharpening. And then these are, oops, recessed in here. These are super flat. So metal with that diamond bonded on there. And so that really gives you a nice edge. And these are just hollowed out here, rabbited, I guess, to keep that from sliding. Although it did warp from all the water I put on it, but it still works. I used to keep my carpentry tools on a wall, like on the cleats, kind of a pegboard system. And then I bought this Mac cabinet. I found this on Facebook Marketplace. It's labeled as Mac, which is equivalent to Snap-on for the most part, but it's actually made by Lista, which makes all of the super skookum high-end aerospace cabinetry. I mean, it is the finest of the fine. I bought it for a little bit of nothing, and it was brand new. So this has been perfect. I keep my planes in the bottom, and then chisels, and it's all random stuff. All my woodworking stuff all fit in here really nicely. And why am I here? A screwdriver. I remember now. I need a screwdriver to take my plane apart. If you're actively working to level up your Proho, you need a number 4 Stanley, a bench plane. This is your mission, your instruction, your summer work is going to be find one at an estate sale. You can buy the new ones. This is a reproduction. Actually, they're not as good as the old ones. There is no substitute for the old ones. They were better in every way. So this is your iron or your blade and your, and this is your chip breaker. No, this is the iron, chip breaker on the back. I'll explain this when we put it together. So separate these two. I have seen some of our more base brothers actually use their cover. It does fit to take this loose, but that is heresy. Don't do that. This is actually very fragile and will easily crack. So only in a pinch. The biggest problem for guys learning how to sharpen chisels and irons is getting that angle right. So here's your cheat code. This right here is a cheap Chinese reproduction. It's a iron guide or a chisel guide. It's got a roller on it. So what you can do, now this one here, you can buy high quality ones or you can buy these cheap Chinese junky ones like I did and spend the whole day machining it to true it up so it actually will work for you. So whatever, I guess, what's your time worth? Here's how I do it. Patent pending, of course. So you can just get down there and eyeball. Match the angle up, that's fine, usually. I have preset these blocks here on my sharpening cabinet. Planes here, chisels over here. So if I want 25 degrees, I go to this block. If I want 30 degrees, I go to this block. And I've already predetermined it, and that way I don't have to reset the angle every time. Now, I've got my perfect angle. If you don't have the blocks, just go down to your sharpening stone and adjust this until you have a nice contact patch on there. It can be a little bit either way, it's fine, as long as you're consistent through the stroke. But before that, we're gonna flatten the backs of the chisel as well as the iron. That's the most important thing. Any tool blade like this with a flat or with a chisel grind, you're gonna wanna flatten the back. And on the diamonds, you don't use oil, just put a little water on there. Helps to carry those chips away. Since this is already flat, that's the first thing you do. When you get brand new chisels, this is what you do, is on your diamond stone, you lay it flat on the back, and you work it on the stones as long as it takes. Start with the coarse, if it's a new chisel, coarse, medium, then fine, and check it. And what you're going to see, what you're looking for, is you want that contact patch. You want that shine all the way across that cutting edge. So get your guide, and I really do recommend the guide until you can learn to do it freehand. And you just push that down so it's about right. Tighten it by hand, but always put a screwdriver on it, because I thought I brought one out here, because it will work loose. And these tools are very sharp. They will cut you, and you don't want to drop one on the ground. Now we have perfect consistency as we roll along on that roller guide. Work the coarse, and then the medium. And we'll finish up with the super fine. See, even simple enough for an East Coast man. Yes, that looks good. Now, just like a job is not done until you put everything away, neither is your sharpening without stropping. Stropping is done on rawhide leather. This is just a piece of leather glued onto some wood, and you strop that, and that puts a very fine polish on it. And now this is scary wicked sharp. And we'll do the same procedure for the chisel. I haven't used these little block gauges for a long time. I did it when I first started, but now I just pretty much sharpen it by hand. But this is really a great tool. I still use this roller. We like our chisels at 25 degrees today, so we'll go 25. Very poorly made gauge, but you get what you pay for. And we'll go through the whole sequence again. Now I'm going to tell you that I flattened the back of this, but of course I put it on the jig before I remembered to. So you don't be that guy. I keep mine flat. I already know they're flat. Really, that's only when they're new. You don't have to do it much after that, if at all. Same thing, just real quick. Coarse. That roller guide is, well, the thing speaks for itself. I'm sure if you've struggled with angles, you can appreciate the genius of it. And then medium. And then the super fine. Summer is coming, beloved. This is the first time I've had the main bay door open. It's sunny and beautiful outside. Here's how you set up your iron and your chip breaker. Cover everything with ballistol. Or any sort of a light oil, especially if you're using wood that has a lot of resin in it, like sap, pitch, Doug fir does, because this will prevent all that stuff from sticking. Oh, goodness. Usually I can't get by it. That was a chip breaker. Had that been the blade, it'd cut me wide open. Okay, so we've got our iron. A2 steel, 25 degree is what the original factory setting was. So what you want to do here is that this is just a little pinch screw. It should look something like this. So not very much, just a little bit. See that little glimmer there? This is the iron. Carpentry really starts with the planer. Planing and jointing is the foundation of carpentry. After you cut the tree down, go through the sawmill process, making the round wood square is where it's at. And this is foundational. This is where you start. This is the first tool you should buy. This and a saw, because you need a good saw to cut to length. Good luck cutting to length with a planer. Okay, so all this basically does is this is a carriage that allows this iron to go down through the throat and remove very, very thin layers of wood, depending on how much you want. Actually, depending on how strong you are. So we're going to be very careful. Do not ding that cast iron housing with that freshly sharpened blade. And now you can see this here is designed to do two things: to change the angle, which we'll set here next, and the depth. Down for deeper, back for more shallow. So take your cap, make sure everything's tight. These are actually lovely pieces of, lovely tools. And just come up until you're just touching, just so you have a little bit of friction, but you can still easily move this, screwing it down and out. To set up your hand plane, you're going to need a piece of scrap wood. Use a piece of scrap from the project you're about to build. This is, goodness, look at this. It's giving me the fizz so much. This is the beautiful, locally sawmilled, locally milled, locally grown right here in the valley, beautiful, clear, vertical grain fir. Whew. The tree of my people, the best tree in the whole world. I have one piece that I came up a little bit short. I had a little piece with a crack in it that didn't quite make my dimension. I needed 5 inches, but I got 5 inches on the end. But waste not, want not. Sometimes you make do with what you have, and we might just leave or try to leave these natural characteristics of that crack, and it's still a usable piece. It's just a stretcher. We'll see. We'll see. I hate to break into a whole nother board, but there's our first initial sketch of the leg. But let's start with a scrap. Hit that thumbs up if you're an old boomer and you remember that sound from high school woodshop. This was the ubiquitous Wilton woodshop vise, wasn't it? Take your scrap, mount it in your vise, just like this, grain running horizontal. Here's how you set up a hand plane. Now we're going to run the blade down until it just starts to catch. Okay, so it's catching a little bit. We're going to test for sharpness, and we're going to get the angle set. So we can see that it catches here, but not over here. So we need to change that angle. See how we can change that? So we have to get this perfect. And how we do that is we get it close. And if both sides are hitting, I'll back it out. We want to just barely come in contact with it. Here and here, I can feel it. Okay, that feels pretty good. Now I can lock that down a little bit. Now we're going to give it a little bit we're going to run it down a little bit, and we're hoping to make a shaving. Okay, that's too much. That's too big of a shaving. I could do it, but it's going to take a lot of effort. I'm going to back that off a little bit. That's better. Little thin, like angel's wings. Now we held that to the left side. We're going to hold it to the right side now. And if our angle is set properly, we're going to have two identical chips, which we don't. This one's much deeper. So that tells us we're cutting deeper on one side than the other. If we were to continue to use this, we would not have pure straight 90-degree angles. This would always have a bit of an angle on it. So we'll just move this over and run it again. Left side chip, right side chip. So we can see now these are almost identical in thickness and shape and all that. So that tells us that our plane is set just about perfectly. Tighten this screw down right here and then watch this magic. Keep ballistol on the bottom of your plane. Push it from back to front. Don't pull it this way. Obviously, you'll cut yourself pretty bad. And this is a incredibly effective tool. And what a delightful tool to use. There is just no substitute for the finish that you get on a piece of wood that has been cut with a finely sharpened iron. It has a sheen and a luster to it that you just don't get with like sandpaper. Sandpaper dulls and just messes everything up. This cuts it like a laser. And the finish, you can tell the difference of wood that is hand planed over machine planed any day. But that right there is a sharp tool. Same thing with our chisel. You should be able to come in a corner and by push cutting have a clean Curly Q. That's a sharp chisel right there. These two tools are ready for work. Wipe them down when you're done because the salt in your hand will cause them to corrode. So put them away with a light coat of oil on them.